week on The Watchman, it's part 2 of Holocaust survivor Irving Roth's amazing life story. How did he make it through the horrors of Auschwitz and Buchenwald and a hellish Nazi death march? Hear Irving's miraculous story of survival.
And he fires a few shots into the air. He says, "Get out or I'll fire underneath." So we crawl out. We're standing in front of the gate in Buchenwald. And I know that after a day, I'll be dead. A miracle.
Holocaust survivor, internationally recognized author and educator, and a true watchman on the wall for Israel and the free world. It's part 2 of our conversation with Irving Roth, only with Christians United for Israel and only on TBN. And welcome to The Watchman. Last week we brought you part 1 of the powerful story of Irving Roth, a Holocaust survivor who overcame unbelievable odds to become an internationally recognized author and lecturer. Now, when we left off last week, it was quite a cliffhanger. Irving was describing the horrific death march that he and other prisoners were forced to endure at the hands of the Nazis. Again, this was a death march. The name says it all. Yet Irving made it out alive against all odds. How did he do it? And what has his life been like after the Holocaust? What's his message for the world today? Here's the conclusion of our incredible conversation with one of the most courageous men I have ever met, Irving Roth.
Hunger, long hours, and that. Will you live another day? But I'm alive, and we're marching out on the 18th of January, ostensibly to work. But we're not going that way. We're marching away from Auschwitz, away from the Russian army, for 3 days. Something referred to as a death march. What it meant, if you slowed down, you were dead. Because we are under guard. So you're hungry, you're tired. By the way, January in Poland is cold. And we are not wearing 7 layers or silk underwear to keep us warm like we do at skiing. So we have this longish coat. That's the outer garment. Underneath that, there may be a shirt. And wooden shoes. Very uncomfortable, by the way. After 3 days, we put into a train, open cars. Hours go by, we wind up in a new place called Buchenwald. Buchenwald was a concentration camp, which means really that it did not have a gas chamber. But Buchenwald was built in 1937 for about 5,000 inmates. When I arrived there were 50,000.
And I'd imagine that death march, many people didn't make it to Buchenwald.
Yes, thousands. There were other places they went to.
They were just gunned down.
They were gunned down. You slowed down and you were dead. But this time, if you were lucky at age 15, if you're tall enough and all that, maybe you're still alive. If you're 60, you're not alive. So Buchenwald had no food in terms of regularly getting something for breakfast, something for lunch, something as you did in Auschwitz. You got some black coffee in the morning, get some soup at noon and a piece of bread at night. Here, if you got a boiled potato every second or third day, you are very lucky. And of course, people die. But I'm trying to stay alive. I'm with my brother, so he gives me encouragement. He was a great believer in God, and he would pray every day. And I used to tell him, I'm hungry, I'm tired, he would say, pray. Don't concentrate on your physical being. Concentrate on your emotional and spiritual being. So it was very helpful, actually. But one day he's taken away. I'm alone. I know the war is coming to an end because we know that. And we hope to maybe survive. And then death marches begin again, and I keep hiding. On the 10th of April,
You were hiding to avoid
to avoid being a death march, because I knew what a death march is, and I knew I can't make it. I'm down to 75 pounds.
You had that will to live.
The will to live. So I keep hiding. It's the 10th of April. I'm hiding under a building, in a crawl space, with a few other guys. Young kids, because in this barracks were all kids, 15-year-olds. Maybe somebody 16. A guard comes along with the dog, and the dog begins to bark, of course, and he knows, and he fires a few shots into the air. He says, "Get out or I'll fire underneath." So we crawl out. We're standing in front of the gate in Buchenwald. And I know that after a day, I'll be dead. A miracle. As we're standing there, the siren goes off. There's an air raid. American airplanes are overhead. American airplanes are bombing Weimar, which is the capital of the German Republic, at one time. So the guards obviously are not going to be outside being exposed, particularly marching with a column of people. The guys from up there will look down and see this column of people. They think probably they're soldiers, so they're going to bomb it or come down and swoop and strafe it. So they wait. That day, the air raid lasted all day long. I survived another day. Next morning, things weren't moving as they move usually, counting us and all that. By 11 o'clock, every single guard disappeared. There was no one in a uniform. They all disappeared. And 3 o'clock in the afternoon on April 11th, 1945, 2 American soldiers walked into our barracks. 2 healthy, battle-hardened soldiers walked into our barracks and saw 15-year-olds emaciated, skeletons shuffling along. These 2 guys broke down. But they also knew they have to do something. When you see emaciated bodies, the answer to a soldier is feed them. So off they went, and within an hour or two, brought down vats of food. The American commander now takes over, and the first thing he did within a matter of a few days, he says, first we have to take care of the kids. Took us out of there, past the warehouse of German army uniforms. So we got all undressed, disinfected, and now we're marching along outside of this warehouse, all German army uniforms, into a building outside of the camp. We're assigned into rooms. Now I'm no longer sleeping on this shelf, these wooden planks. I now have my own bed. There are 3 other guys in my room with their own beds. We get fed 3 times a day.
And the Americans were very kind, the liberators.
In addition to giving just food 3 times a day, they also decided for the kids to give them chocolate. So bars of chocolate. And so I'm alive and I gain weight and the war is over. For me, on the 11th of April, but the rest of the human race in Europe on the 8th of May. What do you do? I'm alone, I'm 15 years old, I'm in the middle of Germany.
Coming up, he escaped the Holocaust with his life. But what about his family? Irving Roth goes in search of his parents. Up next, right here on The Watchmen.
It's time to learn the truth about Israel. If you want to know the real story about Israel, then you need to watch Israel Through the Looking Glass, a movie that confronts the accusations against Israel with the reality on the ground. Witness with your own eyes and ears the contrast between Israel's accusers and the true stories you've never heard.
How far away are we now from Gaza?
From this point to the border, less than a mile.
28,000 rockets?
Rocket in 12 years.
Israeli Arabs have the same, by law, civic rights that any other citizen in the state of Israel has.
Call the number on your screen right now or visit the website and order your free DVD of Israel Through the Looking Glass.
This is what your teachers tell you, right? Teachers, yeah?
Israel needs you to know the truth because the truth is our greatest weapon. Find out what you need to know so you can stand up and speak out for Zion's sake. The DVD is absolutely free. Order right now.
My father's birth certificate. Huh. Born in 1896. So I decided to go back to the village when I was taken in Hungary. By now, it's no longer, now it's Czechoslovakia again. I get there. Do I know if anybody's alive or not? No. So I asked the first person who I see, a farmer. You know, it's a small village. And he tells me, yes, the two people, a husband and wife, Roths, came back. I run over, I open up the door, and there's my mother. So being very cool, I say, hi, Mom. My mother fainted. She could not catch her breath. My parents survived because when we were taken, my father and mother were in Budapest. Because when we came to Hungary, my father needed a job. So he and my mother went off to Budapest and got a job. So what happened to them? What happened is Budapest, they start taking the Jews in Budapest in July, April, us in May, June. Before the Jews of Budapest were being shipped, my father one morning doesn't get up. My mother goes over and talks to him and he's not moving. Shakes him. He's breathing but not moving. He's in a coma. He got typhus. So they get him to the hospital and they examine him and the doctor says he's going to die. There's a night nurse just going off duty and she looked at my mother. So her husband is dying. Her kids, she has no idea where they are. She wants to give her hope. So she tells my mother that even though the doctor said he's going to die, she says, why don't you pray that he doesn't die, because it's possible. Every night, she comes on duty to my father's bed. She begins to make sure that he has some IV flowing, that oxygen is flowing, and talks to him. This goes on night after night after night. He's in a coma. And one night, as she's talking to him, she looks at his face, and suddenly his mouth seems to move. At first, she thought it was a reflex. But then she hears sound. He says, how long have I been asleep? But the Jews of Budapest now are being shipped out. The Jews of Budapest are being shot on the street and dumped into the Danube. They need a place to hide. This wonderful lady, this night nurse, who is a Christian, says to my parents, if you have no place to hide, I live not too far from the hospital. I live in a one-bedroom apartment with my daughter and granddaughter, and my son-in-law is the Hungarian Nazi army. He is not at home. He's on the Russian front. Go there, I'll leave the door open, sneak in, make sure you're quiet all day, all night, be quiet. Then during the day, you mustn't move, you mustn't flush the toilet, you mustn't walk around because the neighbors will know that somebody's there, they'll call the police. Not good. And they fix up a hiding place inside the apartment. So anytime the police come and look for Jews, they don't find them. Neighbors come in to chat. They don't find, they don't know they're there. And this goes on week after week after week. And one night there's a knock on the door. Into the hiding place they go. It's the son-in-law who comes home for 3 days. The wife decides to explain to him that we have these two people, very distant relatives who are living with us. It's a little crowded. Actually, they're not really living here. They're hiding here. And you mustn't tell anybody, because if you do, they'll be shot. And if you want to go to bed with me tonight, you're going to keep your big mouth shut. And so my parents survived because someone was willing to help. And that is the essence, one of the basic principles that I try to teach students and adults. When you see a bully, he's picking on someone, don't stand by and do nothing.
So many bystanders during the Holocaust.
Millions.
Shameful.
Look, in my time when the Jews were being taken, didn't take thousands of people to do that. Who were they? They were people who joined the Nazi Party, people who were policemen. That's who took the Jews. The rest of the group slept. They weren't involved. Next morning, the Jews are locked up in the synagogue. There is no running water, there are no bathroom. They went shopping for Sunday dinner. Did they bring food to the Jews? No.
Up next, he was reunited with his parents. But what about his brother, whose unwavering faith in God helped sustain Irving Roth during the Holocaust? Hear the tragic story after the break, only right here on TBN.
I've just returned from Washington, D.C., where I had the honor of meeting with the President and Vice President of the United States of America. God has given Christians United for Israel unprecedented favor with our national leaders. And I fully expect to see God use CUFI in a supernatural way to protect the state of Israel and the Jewish people in the years to come. We need every CUFI member to come to Washington, D.C. for the summit on July 17th and 18th. This summit is going to be one for the history books. You can register right now for only $75, and our operators are standing by to assist you with making reservations. For Zion's sake, come to Washington, D.C. and help CUFI help the President defend Israel.
This is my brother and I. He was 3 years older than I suspect he was like 4 years older in this photographs, and I was about a year old.
You survived, Irving. Your parents survived. You eventually moved to America,
Yes.
but your brother Bondi.
Never came back. I only know because they kept halfway decent, good records about what was happening to people. From Buchenwald, he eventually, within a few weeks, he wound up in Bergen-Belsen. And that's when the Bergen-Belsen, among other things, had the typhus epidemic. Anne Frank died there too.
Irving, the thing that's so frustrating to me is this was the end of the war. So many. It seemed like the murder almost. It was an uptick as the war almost ended.
Yes.
They knew they had a short window of time to complete the genocide.
In a way, psychologically, the way I see it is people, Nazis or people who didn't want the Jews to remain alive, realize the war is coming to an end, that Germany is going to lose. But the war against the Jews can still be won. You're talking 437,000 people were murdered in 53 days.
At the end of the war, 45.
Because by then, the Russian army was already in Poland, already close to Romania. The American army, by the end of 1943, took over all of Italy. They were bombing the cities of Germany day and night. The war against the Jews can still be won. But they didn't. They won many battles. Maybe a little more than 6 million Jews were murdered. 50 million people died during World War II. It all began with a simple idea. We as a country don't want the Jews here, get them out of here. Nobody wants the Jews, we figured out how to take care of them, get rid of them. 50 million people had to die to destroy the system. Question. How many people will have to die to stop this murderous regimes and this hatred? Today. Hundreds of thousands of people have been murdered in Syria. 5 years. What has been accomplished?
History repeating itself.
We allow history to repeat.
Coming up, more from Holocaust survivor Irving Roth, how he's working with CUFI and the Christian community to help sound the alarm for America, Israel, and the free world. It's The Watchman. It's Christians United for Israel, only right here on TBN. Stick around.
It's time to learn the truth about Israel. If you want to know the real story about Israel, then you need to watch Israel Through the Looking Glass, a movie that confronts the accusations against Israel with the reality on the ground. Witness with your own eyes and ears the contrast between Israel's accusers and the true stories you've never heard.
How far away are we now from Gaza?
From this point to the border, less than a mile.
28,000 rockets?
Rocket in 12 years.
Israeli Arabs have the same, by law, civic rights that any other citizen in the state of Israel has.
Call the number on your screen right now or visit the website and order your free DVD of Israel Through the Looking Glass.
This is what your teachers tell you, right? Teachers, yeah?
Israel needs you to know the truth because the truth is our greatest weapon. Find out what you need to know so you can stand up and speak out for Zion's sake. The DVD is absolutely free. Order right now.
If you can, give us some closing thoughts. And also, how working with CUFI and the Christian community, how that's impacted you over the past several years in your mission.
The way I look at the Jewish people and Israel in particular, there are three legs that support Israel, the survival of Israel. One leg is they themselves, both economically and militarily. The IDF is there. The second piece is Israel is not a superpower. It needs a superpower. Unfortunately, if the superpower America throws Israel under the bus, as it said, if it says, oh, you ought to do this, you ought to, we know what's good for you. If a superpower in the next month or 2 months or year or 10 years decides to go along with the UN, it's over. Then you have millions of Christians in America supporting Israel, shouting from the mountaintops. That's the second leg.
Christians United for Israel at the forefront of that
Absolutely.
movement. Yeah.
3.5 million people gather together, put money together, put their voices together, go to colleges and universities and educate Christian students. And then there's another fellow called God. And I think between the three of them,
Yeah, the Jewish people will be just fine. And it's been just so encouraging and heartening, I think, to see the Jewish people and Christians coming together for such a time as this.
I had the privilege of speaking at Liberty University. How do you start? You're a Holocaust survivor, a Jew, and 10,000 Christians. I started with a sentence from the Psalm. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice in it.
Irving, it was a blessing to be with you today, and we hope this is seen far and wide. And God has his hand on this movement, CUFI we're talking about, and he's had his hand on your amazing life, Irving. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Folks, on behalf of our entire team here at Christians United for Israel, I want to thank Irving Roth for taking the time to sit down with us and share his incredible story. Irving speaks the truth with the kind of boldness and moral clarity that is so lacking in our world today. God is using him in a mighty way. And our team at CUFI is so blessed to have Irving speak at our events throughout the country with a particular focus on college campuses, where he looks to educate young people before they can be infected with that ancient poison of anti-Semitism. When I think of Irving's amazing life and how he has touched so many people, I think of what Joseph told his brothers in the book of Genesis. You intended to harm me, but God intended it all for good. He brought me to this position so I could save the lives of many people. Irving has an amazing testimony to share. We can only pray that people are listening. Be sure to visit Amazon.com or any site where books are sold to pick up Irving's excellent book, Bondi's Brother, about his experiences in the Holocaust. And join our movement here at Christians United for Israel, America's largest pro-Israel organization, as we work day and night to support and defend God's people and God's land. For Zion's sake, we will not remain silent. Never again means never again. Thanks for joining us for this very special two-part Watchman edition with Irving Roth. Until next time, God bless you. And remember, never hold your peace.